The rain had just stopped when Daniel Foster, one of the city's most private millionaires, stepped out of his sleek black car with his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. The early morning streets were glistening, the wet pavement reflecting the glow of streetlights. Daniel wasn't the kind of man who enjoyed public attention. In fact, he avoided it whenever possible. But today was different. He had promised Lily a morning out. It wasn't often they did this, just the two of them, without bodyguards or the watchful eyes of his corporate world. Today, he wanted it to be simple. A quiet cafe, a warm drink, maybe a pastry. Something normal. Lily clutched a small teddy bear, the one she'd carried since she was 2. She had big, round hazel eyes that seemed to hold whole conversations, even though she couldn't speak. She had been born mute, and while therapists had tried everything, progress had been painfully slow. Lily could understand perfectly but had always been hesitant to use sign language with strangers. Daniel's protective instincts had built walls around her life. He didn't want her to be hurt by the world's impatience. Yet, somewhere deep inside, he knew she was longing for connection. They walked into a cozy corner cafe with wide glass windows. The smell of freshly ground coffee and warm pastries filled the air. Soft jazz music hummed in the background. Daniel chose a table by the window, where Lily could watch the raindrops slide down the glass. "Hot chocolate for you?" he asked, speaking softly. She nodded with a shy smile and hugged her teddy closer. A waitress appeared, young and polite, scribbling down their order. She smiled at Lily, who simply stared down at the table. Daniel noticed. His chest tightened. He'd seen that look before. A mix of curiosity and hesitation, but Lily always pulled away before anyone could bridge the gap. They sat quietly, Daniel occasionally checking his phone. He tried to make small talk with Lily, but her attention kept wandering toward a table across the cafe. A young woman sat there, dressed simply but elegantly. Her dark hair framed a kind, open face, and she was sipping tea while reading something on her tablet. When her eyes met Lily's, she didn't look away like most people did. She smiled. Not a forced, pitying smile, just warm. Daniel noticed the silent exchange but thought nothing of it until it happened again. And again. A few minutes later, their hot chocolate and coffee arrived. Daniel stirred his cup absent-mindedly, but Lily's attention remained fixed on the young woman. She set down her teddy bear, placed her tiny hands on the table, and Daniel froze. She made a hesitant movement with her fingers. It was clumsy, uncertain, but it was sign language. The young woman across the cafe tilted her head slightly, then put down her tea and signed something back, fluidly, gracefully, without hesitation. Lily's eyes widened in surprise. Her small hands moved again, this time faster, more confident. Daniel's grip tightened around his coffee cup as he watched his daughter engage in an animated, silent conversation with a complete stranger. He had never seen her so alive with someone outside the family. Within seconds, the young woman stood up and walked toward their table. Daniel's instinctive protectiveness kicked in. He straightened in his chair, his businessman's composure taking over. "Hi," she said gently, turning first to Lily, then to Daniel. "I'm sorry. I couldn't help but notice. She's signing?" Daniel's voice was cautious. "Yes, she knows some." "Why?" "I teach children with speech and hearing challenges," the woman explained. "I didn't mean to intrude, but she started talking to me. And she's very good." Lily tugged at her father's sleeve and pointed at the woman, her small fingers signing something Daniel only half understood. "What's she saying?" Daniel asked. "She's saying she likes me," the woman said with a laugh. "And she wants to know my name." The stranger crouched down to Lily's level. "My name is Emma," she signed slowly, exaggerating the motions so Lily could follow. "What's yours?" Lily's hands moved quickly. "Lily." Daniel couldn't remember the last time he'd seen his daughter introduce herself to someone outside of therapy sessions. His throat tightened unexpectedly. Emma sat with them, and soon Lily was laughing. Actually laughing, without making a sound, her hands flying in animated gestures. Emma responded just as quickly, keeping the conversation alive. Daniel sat back, half forgotten in his own world, watching his daughter's joy unfold in real time. It was strange. In the span of minutes, Emma had achieved what therapists, specialists, and countless sessions hadn't. Lily was fully engaging, freely expressing herself without fear. Daniel didn't interrupt. He was afraid to. The minutes stretched into nearly an hour. The rain outside slowed to a drizzle, but Daniel's mind was racing. Who was this woman? And why did it feel like fate had arranged this meeting? At one point, Emma looked at him and signed, "She's incredible." Then she added aloud, "She's not afraid to speak. She just needed someone to listen in her language." The words hit him harder than expected. He realized, with a twist of guilt, that maybe he hadn't been truly listening. He had been protecting her, yes, but also keeping her in a small, safe box. Now, here she was breaking out of it because of a stranger. As Emma stood to leave, Lily's hands moved quickly, almost desperately. "Can she come again?" Daniel's heart squeezed. He turned to Emma. "Would you?" He hesitated. "Would you be open to meeting her again? I'll pay for your time, of course." Emma shook her head. "You don't need to pay me. I'd love to." She wrote her number on a napkin, placed it on the table, and signed to Lily, "See you soon." Lily hugged her teddy tightly, watching Emma walk out into the damp street. Daniel sat in silence for a long time after she left, the napkin still in front of him. Something had shifted today, something deep, and for the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope for his daughter's world to open beyond the walls he had built. The following Saturday morning, Daniel found himself pacing by the window of his penthouse apartment. The city skyline stretched before him, bathed in soft golden light. He glanced at his watch for the third time. Emma was due to arrive in 15 minutes. Lily was already sitting by the door, dressed in her favorite pale blue dress, her teddy bear tucked neatly under her arm. She kept glancing at the elevator, her legs swinging impatiently. Daniel had never seen his daughter anticipate a visitor like this. Family, friends, therapists, tutors, none of them had earned this kind of excitement. And yet, for a woman they had met only once, Lily's joy was boundless. When the doorbell finally rang, Lily sprang to her feet, her smile so wide it almost startled Daniel. He opened the door to find Emma standing there, holding a small box wrapped with a ribbon. "Hi," she said warmly. "I brought something for Lily." Lily rushed forward, signing rapidly, and Emma crouched to her level to respond. Daniel stepped back and let them in, quietly observing. The two sat on the living room floor, opening the box together. Inside was a set of colorful flashcards, each with a picture on one side and the sign for that word on the other. Lily's hands fluttered with delight, and Daniel felt something inside him shift again. Emma had thought about what would help his daughter, and not in the clinical, textbook way therapists did, but in a way that felt personal. They spent the next hour on the floor, playing games with the flashcards. Emma's teaching style was so natural, so fluid, that Daniel almost forgot she wasn't part of their lives before last week. After a while, Daniel brought in drinks, coffee for himself and Emma, warm milk for Lily. As they sipped, Daniel finally broke the question that had been on his mind since their first meeting. "How did you learn sign language?" he asked. Emma paused, her eyes dropping for just a moment before meeting his. "My younger brother was deaf," she said softly. "We grew up signing. It was our own world until—" She hesitated. "He passed away when he was 9. Daniel felt a quiet ache in his chest. "I'm sorry," he said sincerely. Emma smiled faintly. "Thank you. Teaching kids like Lily is my way of keeping that part of him alive. I guess I've never really stopped talking to him. Just through other children now." Daniel nodded slowly. For the first time, he understood the depth behind her gentle patience. This wasn't just a skill. It was a piece of her heart. Over the next weeks, Emma became a fixture in their lives. Twice a week, she would meet them at the cafe or visit their home, and each time, Lily's vocabulary grew. Not just in sign language, but in confidence. Daniel watched in awe as his daughter transformed. She initiated conversations, told small stories through her hands, even corrected her father's clumsy attempts at signing with a giggle. And it wasn't just Lily who was changing. Daniel found himself looking forward to Emma's visits more than he wanted to admit. They talked about everything, Books, music, childhood memories, the odd ways the city could feel lonely even in a crowd. One rainy evening, after a particularly lively session where Lily told her first full story in sign, Emma stayed a little longer. Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, her teddy tucked under her chin. Daniel poured them each a glass of wine, and they sat by the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. "She's extraordinary," Emma said quietly, glancing at Lily. "I don't just mean her signing. She notices everything, the smallest details. It's like she reads people's hearts." Daniel exhaled slowly. "I've tried so hard to protect her from the world that I might have kept her from it." He hesitated before adding, "I've always been afraid that she'd get hurt, that she wouldn't be able to defend herself. I didn't realize I was building walls so high she couldn't see over them." Emma turned to him, her eyes steady. "The world can be harsh, Daniel, but she's stronger than you think. And she's going to need you to be brave enough to let her step into it." Her words lingered in the quiet room. The next few weeks passed in a blur. One afternoon, they were at the cafe when something unexpected happened. Lily was sitting at the table, signing a story to Emma, when a little boy at the next table began watching curiously. He was about Lily's age and seemed fascinated by her moving hands. Tentatively, he waved. Lily paused, looked at Emma, then at her father. Daniel gave her an encouraging nod. She signed something simple, "Hello," and to everyone's surprise, the boy signed it back. His mother explained that he was just learning sign language because his cousin was deaf. Within minutes, the two children were talking, their faces lit with excitement. Daniel felt something deep and almost painful, pride, mixed with the bittersweet awareness that his little girl was stepping into a bigger world, and she was ready for it. That evening, as they walked home, Lily reached for his hand and signed, "I'm happy." Daniel swallowed hard. "Me too," he whispered. It was around this time that Daniel started noticing something else. Emma had a way of seeing him, not just the wealthy businessman everyone else interacted with. She laughed at his dry humor, challenged his guarded opinions, and sometimes caught him staring too long. One night, after dropping Emma off, he sat in his car for a long moment before starting the engine. He realized that somewhere along the way, she had become more than just Lily's teacher. She had become a part of them. But just as everything seemed to be falling into place, life threw its inevitable twist. One afternoon, Emma arrived late for their session, her usually calm expression clouded. She tried to hide it, but Daniel noticed immediately. "Is everything okay?" he asked. She hesitated, then forced a smile. "It's nothing. Let's focus on Lily." But throughout the lesson, her mind seemed elsewhere. Her hands still moved gracefully, but there was a heaviness behind them. After Lily went to bed that night, Daniel gently pressed again. Emma sighed, her shoulders slumping. "The community center where I teach, it's closing. Funding cuts. Most of the kids I work with won't have anywhere else to go. I've been trying to find a solution, but..." She trailed off, shaking her head. Daniel felt a spark of something, determination. "What if I could help?" Emma looked startled. "Daniel, that's generous, but this isn't your responsibility." "Emma," he said firmly, "you've changed my daughter's life. You've given her a voice. If there's a way to keep you doing that for other kids, I want to be part of it." She stared at him, her eyes shining. Not with the polite gratitude he often got from people when he wrote a check, but with something real. "Let's talk about it," she said softly. And as the night stretched on, with the sound of rain against the windows and Lily sleeping peacefully in the next room, Daniel realized this wasn't just about saving a community center. It was about saving something far more personal, something he wasn't ready to lose. The next morning, Daniel sat at his office desk, staring at the city skyline, but his mind wasn't on the merger documents in front of him. His thoughts kept drifting back to Emma's troubled expression from the night before. In the business world, problems had solutions usually one's money could fix. But this was different. It wasn't just about writing a check. It was about creating something sustainable, something that mattered. By noon, he had made a decision. He called his assistant and said, "Find out everything about the Westbrook Community Center. current budget, debts, ownership, everything. And do it quietly. The file arrived in less than 2 hours. Daniel skimmed through it, his jaw tightening. The center had been running on minimal funding for years, relying on donations and small grants. The recent city budget cuts had been the final blow. Without intervention, they'd close in less than a month. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. There was a way to save it. He could buy the building outright, cover operating costs for the next 5 years, and set up a foundation to ensure it would never face closure again. But he didn't want Emma to feel like it was charity. He wanted her to know it was an investment in her work, in the children, in Lily, and maybe, if he was honest with himself, in something between them. 2 days later, Daniel arrived at the cafe earlier than usual. He'd arranged to meet Emma and Lily there for their regular session. But this time, he was prepared. He carried a manila envelope under his arm. When Emma walked in, her face lit up at the sight of Lily, who was already seated with her teddy bear. They began their usual warm-up signs, Lily giggling as she corrected Emma's deliberately wrong motions. Daniel waited until Lily was engrossed in a drawing, then slid the envelope across the table toward Emma. "What's this?" she asked, frowning slightly. "Just read it," he said. Emma pulled out the documents and scanned them, her brow furrowing deeper with each page. When she reached the end, she looked up at him, her mouth slightly open. "You bought the community center?" she whispered. "Not exactly," Daniel said with a faint smile. "I set up a trust that owns it. It'll cover all expenses, salaries, and programs for the next 5 years. After that, there's a funding structure in place. It's yours to run as you see fit." Emma blinked at him, clearly overwhelmed. "Daniel, this is too much. I can't accept this." "You're not accepting it for yourself," he replied gently. "You're accepting it for the kids who need it. For my daughter, who found her voice because of you." Her eyes glistened. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep doing what you do best," he said softly. "That's all I need." For a long moment, she just looked at him. Then, slowly, she reached across the table and took his hand. "You have no idea what this means." But Daniel thought he did. Over the next weeks, their bond deepened. Emma began inviting Lily to the center, where she met other children who signed. Daniel watched from the sidelines as his daughter bloomed, joining games, teaching signs to new friends, her shyness melting away. One evening, after closing time at the center, Emma asked Daniel to stay a little longer. They stood in the empty main room, the faint hum of the city outside. "I wanted to show you something," Emma said, pulling a worn photo from her bag. It showed a boy about Lily's age, grinning widely, his hands frozen mid-sign. "My brother," she explained. "He used to say that signing wasn't just about talking, it was about being seen. He hated feeling invisible." Daniel studied the boy's smiling face. "And you made sure other kids wouldn't feel that way." Emma's gaze softened. "And you made sure I could keep doing it." The air between them shifted, charged, but gentle. Daniel wanted to say something, but before he could, Lily came running in from the playroom, signing excitedly about a new game she'd learned. The moment passed, but the weight of it lingered. Then came the night everything changed. They were leaving the center late, the sky a deep indigo, streetlights casting soft pools of light. As they reached the parking lot, a sudden crash of thunder made Lily flinch. She clung to Daniel's arm, but her eyes darted to Emma, who knelt down and signed something that made Lily smile instantly. "What did you say?" Daniel asked. Emma grinned. "I told her thunder is just the sky playing drums." Daniel chuckled, but his laughter faded as he realized something. Emma had a way of turning fear into wonder, not just for Lily, but for him, too. He opened the car door for them, and as Emma leaned in to buckle Lily's seatbelt, Daniel found himself watching her. Not just her kindness with Lily, but the quiet strength she carried. When she straightened up, their eyes met. For a moment, neither moved. The rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavier, tapping against the roof like a heartbeat. And standing there, in the glow of the streetlight, Daniel realized that somewhere along the way, Emma had become more than just a teacher. more than just a friend. She had become home. The rain had not stopped for 3 days straight. It drummed against Daniel's office windows in a steady rhythm, but instead of the usual calm it brought him, it made him restless. Emma had been busier than ever since the community center's reopening announcement, and their meetings were now filled with groups of children instead of the quiet moments Daniel secretly missed. That evening, he decided to do something about it. He picked up Lily from school himself, a rare treat for her, and instead of heading straight home, he drove toward the Westbrook Community Center. But when they arrived, the building was quiet. No classes, no laughter. Inside, the lights in the main hall glowed softly, and there she was, Emma, sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by papers and colorful craft supplies. She was so focused she didn't notice them until Lily ran across the room and hugged her. Daniel followed, his steps slow. "You're working late," he said. Emma smiled tiredly. "Big event tomorrow. Family day. I'm trying to get everything ready." Lily dropped her bag and immediately began helping, carefully lining up stacks of paper. Emma watched her with affection before turning to Daniel. "She's going to be the star tomorrow. I asked her to open the event with a signed welcome." Daniel's brows lifted. "She agreed to that?" Emma's smile widened. She didn't even hesitate. For a moment, Daniel just looked at her. He wanted to say thank you, to tell her she had changed not only Lily's life but his own. But before he could speak, Lily came bounding back, signing quickly. "What's she saying?" Daniel asked. Emma's eyes softened as she interpreted. "She says, you and I should get married." Daniel blinked, his composure breaking into a startled laugh. "She said that." Emma nodded, cheeks flushed, but there was a twinkle in her eyes. "She also said, she wants a mom who can talk with her hands." Daniel glanced down at his daughter, who was grinning mischievously. "You've been conspiring," he said, mock serious, but his heart was pounding. Emma looked away, busying herself with the papers, but Daniel took a step closer. "She's not wrong, you know," he said quietly. Emma froze, then slowly turned to him. "Daniel." He shook his head lightly, almost amused at himself. "I'm not very good at this. I've spent years hiding behind business deals and numbers. But this," he gestured toward her, toward Lily. "This is different. You're different. You've given my daughter a voice. And you've given me something I didn't even know I was missing." Emma's eyes glistened, but she said nothing. Daniel took another step forward. "I don't know where this goes. I just know I don't want to imagine our lives without you in them." For a moment, the only sound was the rain on the roof. Then Emma let out a small laugh, shaking her head. "You know, you could have just started with that instead of buying a whole community center." Daniel chuckled. "What can I say? I'm not subtle." They stood there, close enough that the air between them felt charged. Lily clapped her hands to get their attention, then signed something quickly. Emma grinned and translated. "She says she's going to start calling me Mom now, whether we like it or not." Daniel laughed, the tension breaking, but his chest ached in the best possible way. He glanced at Emma. "Guess we're outnumbered." Emma's voice was soft but steady. "I think I'm okay with that." The next day, family day at the center. The room was packed, children laughing and signing to one another, parents mingling. Daniel stood near the back, watching Lily walk confidently to the front of the room. Emma stood beside her, smiling with pride. Lily began her welcome speech in sign language, her small hands moving with precision and joy. Daniel noticed the crowd watching in awe, but his eyes stayed on his daughter, and on the woman beside her who had made this moment possible. When the applause filled the room, Lily looked directly at Daniel and signed something. He recognized it instantly. "I'm happy." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He looked at Emma, who had tears in her eyes. Without thinking, he reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. In that moment, surrounded by the soundless language that had somehow spoken louder than words, Daniel realized the truth. Money had built his world, but Emma and Lily had given it meaning. And as they stood there together, he knew this was just the beginning.
Dear friend, If this story made you pause for even a moment, brought a tear to your eye, or stirred something deep inside your heart, then please give it a like and share. Maybe your one share becomes hope for someone else. And if you'd like to keep receiving stories that speak to the soul, don't forget to subscribe. It's the first step in our journey together. Oh, and please share your thoughts in the comments, because every word from you means the world to me. Thank you truly from the heart.